So if you watched the previous video about how plugins work, this is more of a deep dive for anybody who wants to know how they work internally, who might have aspirations of writing their own. This is definitely geared towards programmers. If that's not your bag, you can just skip right by this video. But if you're sticking around, recall that we had this plugins folder that had the Python files in them. Now, those get scanned and they get put in here, and you can define arguments and stuff. Let's take a look at how that actually works. So let's pick the smallest one, to generate unique target. So any plugin for Qrucible needs to have a header like this at the top of it. It gives it a name, description, and defines the parameters that it's looking for. And whatever parameters you put into this list, you basically have a contract with Qrucible that it's going to pass you values that match up to these. So this is the name you'll be receiving. This is the text that appears in Qrucible. You're telling Qrucible what kind of control you want. In this case, it's a text control, a default value, and some data that gets loaded in. That's only used for one type of control right now. But there's a little boilerplate that follows this, but not very much. First, you have to import that Qrucible plugin that I talked about in the previous video. That's just a standard script that everybody leverages. And then in your main function, you call the init function. And the init function, this is Qrucible plugin right here. This just takes the arguments that were passed in, parses them out, and puts them into a dictionary so you can look them up, real easy later on. And this has a couple of helper functions for doing things with targets, but we won't get into that right now. We'll go back to here. So that's the boilerplate to get started. So once we've got Qrucible up and running, or the Qrucible plugin up and running, I call these helper functions to find the next valid target name and that kind of stuff, or target number, I should say. And this generates that for me. Now, when it comes time to actually communicate back to Qrucible, right, to send the results back, anything you print inside this script is going to get sent to standard out. And you can print as much as you want. And when Qrucible regains control, it's going to read standard out and copy it to the clipboard, basically. That's the whole communication mechanism. And when you get done, there's two emit functions, success and failure. And depending on what you send back here, Qrucible will display a little message for the user, letting them know that it was, copied to the clipboard, or there was an error parsing the file. Whatever you define these to be, that's up to you as the programmer. And that's really it. Once you begin to fool around with this, you'll see it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on. A more complex example is the monster teleporter. You can kind of ignore the way I've done all of this. I just basically have the blob of text that I know I want for every monster teleporter, and then I've put in these tags, right? These replaceable tags. So I tell it, the desk tags appears here and here. So when my script runs, it's like all the others. I do the init, I find the next target, and then I do some text replacement on that big blob of text, right, to put the monster class in that was passed to me and make up unique tags for these two. Handle the aggro spawn, and then I just print that big blob of text to standard out. I say copy to clipboard, and it returns, and then you can paste it into TrenchBurn. The parameters on this one are a little more involved, but for each parameter you want, you just have to have one more line of parameters. This is the monster dropdown, right? So there's the name of the variable, the UI, it's an option button, it defaults to army, and the data chunk is all the different kinds of monsters you can have spawning in vanilla Quake. And then, the spawn angry is just a checkbox. So that is the crux of how all that worked. And if you come back here, this makes a lot more sense, right? You got your prefix, you got this thing that we saw set up a second ago, spawn angry checkbox, run it, boom, copy to clipboard. So that gives you the basic flow of how Qrucible calls the plugin and how the plugin returns data to Qrucible. It's all done through text. It's all done through the clipboard. And I think there's a lot of power here actually that can be leveraged for some cool stuff. Yeah, it's not the most advanced system in the world, but it's honestly the first one I've ever put together. So I'm actually kind of proud of it. So thanks for watching, and I hope you write an awesome plugin. That would be friggin' great to see. Thanks.